A cheesy horror movie burrito podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to a bonus episode of the Cheesy Horror Movie Burrito Podcast. I, of course, am your burrito master, JDK, and this is going to be something a little different. Instead of focusing on a movie or something like that, instead I'm going to be focusing specifically on Friday the 13th and Jason Voorhees.
Kill her, Mommy. Kill her.
Now, these opinions are just my opinions, probably gathered from stuff I've read and stuff I've seen online, all kind of smushed together. If your opinion's different than mine, great. I want to hear it. Leave it in the comments. Reach out to me. Let me know, okay? So one of the things I want to tackle is the legend that Jason Voorhees drowned as a child. That's what we're told in the first movie, and that's kind of like his back lore, like Jason died by water. The thing is that I don't believe Jason Voorhees actually drowned as a child. In Friday the 13th Part 2, he's a grown-ass man, for starters. And if you notice the way Jason Voorhees reacts in Parts 2, 3, and 4, it's way different than your typical Jason, what we all think about. And my theory is that in Friday the 13th Part 2, 3, and 4, he's a living man, just like you, I, or anybody else. In Part 2, you see him do stuff like run from the cops. He has a shed where he keeps his mother's head. Very human things to do, sentimental, right? We see him running his ass off. In future movies, you never see him running. In this one, he's running all over the place. There's even a scene where Jenny, our final girl, kicks him in the balls and he falls down. How many times have you seen Jason get kicked in the balls and fall down? So it's just a different vibe that parts 2, 3, and 4 have. And it's my opinion that in part 4, he definitely died, right? He took that machete slide right through his face, and at this point, he's dead. It did appear like maybe Tommy Jarvis would take over the role of quote-unquote Jason, and they even teased that in Part 5, but that never really came to fruition, because in Part 6, they brought him back. Now in Part 6, they definitely rose him from the dead. They dug him up, they ripped over the top of his coffin, shoved a metal pole up his ass, which then got struck by lightning. There's that theme again, lightning bringing things back to life. So at this point, Jason in Part 6, 7, and 8, it's all kind of the same, that typical Jason. What you think about when you think about Jason, the slow-walking, Terminator-like, menacing, unstoppable killer that seemingly can teleport, seemingly could just be anywhere, anytime. And that Jason really didn't pop up till Part 6, 7, and 8.
Hey, you big hunk of a man, come and get me.
Jason is back.
I would like to kind of let you guys know what my favorite Jason movies are. So my top 3 Friday the 13th movies, number 1 is Part 4. Absolutely love it. Number 2 is Part 7. And in Part 7, I don't think Jason ever looked better. He had the mask with all the damage from Parts 3 and Part 6. His body was just grotesque, and you could see like parts of his skeleton, and he was big and thick, and that's to me the best he's ever looked. And my third pick is actually not really a Jason movie, but it's the first Friday the 13th.
If the memory of Jason still haunts you, you're not alone.
My favorite masks are definitely the one he wore in Part 7, the way that mask looked. And in Part 3, when he first got it, when it was new and shiny. And actually, I'm digging the Uber Jason mask. I know Jason X doesn't get a lot of love, but I like Jason X.
What the hell is going on?
Jason Voorhees, that's what's going on. He's an unstoppable killing machine.
Guys, it's okay. He just wanted his machete back.
My least favorite Friday the 13th movies are definitely number 1, Part 8. I hate Part 8. I mean, I guess it's not that bad, but I don't like the mask. I don't like the look. The gore is just not existing. I mean, I know these movies were pretty much raked over the coals by the MPAA, but none worse than this one. My second least favorite is Part 9, the Jason Goes to Hell. And this is because they just try to shoehorn so much of some kind of mythology into Jason. Now he can switch bodies and can born by a Voorhees, has to be killed by a Voorhees, and I don't know, I never really liked that. And the third one I put on my list as my third least favorite is Part 2. It's not bad, but there's no mask. It helps to have the mask. I mentioned earlier that Jason X doesn't get a lot of love, and I personally like that movie. It's like a love letter to Jason Voorhees. I mean, obviously it's not Friday the 13th, but Friday the 13th is not in the title. You get some cool kills, like who could forget that death aboard the space station where he dips her head in that liquid, pulls it up and shatters it. Awesome effect, and some of the best gore in the whole series comes from Jason X, and Uber Jason is pretty awesome, but I know for some reason a lot of people don't like it.
Weekends are a good time to escape to the woods. unless the weekend begins with Friday the 13th.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me again for this bonus episode of the Cheesy Horror Movie Burrito Podcast, and let me share my love of Friday the 13th and Jason Voorhees with you. Hey, did you guys hear that? There was a noise from my window. Hang on, I'll be right back.